Hey, welcome back to the podcast. This is the Evil Dungeon Master Universe podcast. I am your host, the Evil Dungeon Master Vince. Hopefully, we're having a good Wednesday. This is the middle of the week, and time for another podcast. So, don't forget to head to theevildm.com for my website to ask questions, follow along, and whatever. You can always join this podcast channel by clicking join on YouTube to support me for 99 cents a month, or you can head over to Spotify and join me there for 99 cents a month if you want to support just the only audio podcast. It's really up to you. Ask the DM at theevildm.com is where you can get ask me a question directly, or facebook.com/theevildungeonmaster if you want to send me an instant message to give me a comment or just chat, because I always respond to people. Today's topic is going to focus on solo role-playing, and I've been getting into that a lot lately. As on my YouTube channel, I've been doing a lot of co-op GM-less play on there with my buddy Jeff. We were doing All Flesh Must Be Eaten, DC Heroes, basic Dungeons and Dragons, and now we moved into some Rifts. So we have two things going on, Rifts and DC Heroes at the moment right now. GM co-op play just using the Mythic Game Master emulator and Foundry VTT. You can check those out by going to youtube.com/theevildm to check those out. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about solo roleplay, but a little bit different type of solo roleplay, because in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons and the DMG guide, on page 173, I had to find the page, I lost it for a second, there is a section for random dungeon generator for solo play, which random wilderness, and you can also randomly build a dungeon along the way. Now, I started recording a series on my channel for YouTube called Solo AD&D following these rules, which you can catch this weekend. It'll be dropping on Saturday in the afternoon. Those that are member channels of my YouTube channel can watch it now and have been able to watch it for a couple days now because it's been live for members. But on page 173, it says, the random dungeon generator system is easily adaptable to solitary play. Locate the entrance to the dungeon and then select one of the random dungeon starting areas given here, located in the middle of the graph paper. And then you can, you can populate it with monsters and everything like that, but we'll get to that in a second. One of the things I really liked that got me to really start this series of playing AD&D solo was the random wilderness terrain hex map, where you can build the entire overworld. Now, it's meant mostly for doing hex crawling with your group, but since it was listed here under the solo play, I was like, you know what? Maybe I can pre-do my world and populate my world ahead of time with hexes that I'm going to be traveling through. Now, I was like, all right, not a bad idea. So I sat down and I made up some custom hex map papers. And I decided that each hex on the map was going to be 30 miles. And then inside that was going to be 5-mile hexes. So I sat down and I rolled. And I got, I went through the chart here under random wilderness terrains. And you roll basically a d20 under each one. You decide what you want to start with. It's up to you totally. Or you could just randomly roll to see what you do. But I decided to start with grassy plains. And then from there, I rolled on the chart, and then it moved me along from forest to scrub to rough to desert, hills, mountains, marsh, and depressions. And on the side, it gives you a little chart so you can kind of get an idea what each of them mean in case you're not really familiar with the term. So, example, a plain could be a tundra, a savanna, a prairie, a heath, moor, meadow. Scrubs could be like brushes, bush, thickets, brackens, forest, wood, jungle, groves, and light forests, or copses, Rough would be like the Badlands. Desert would kind of be the equivalent of barrens, waste, flats, snowfields. It really depends on what climate you're going to base it in. And I decided that what we would do is I would just leave it as the basic plain scrub forest. So we're just kind of in a temperate climate, so to speak. And I rolled and got my chart up, and you can see one of the pictures there on YouTube if you want to just check it out. But I got my little map, my little area done. Then after that, you could populate it with settlements, inhabitations of the area. And there's another chart for that as well. So you go through each hex rolling percentile, and anything below a 17 will give you like a dwelling, a thorp, a hamlet, a village, a town, a city, castle, ruins, and the ruins could be village, city, shrine, or tomb. And other than that, it's uninhabited. Excuse me. But when you go through each of the single dwellings, thorps, blah blah blah, and then city, when you get up to castle, there is another chart that you can roll on for seeing what the castle is, what inhabits the castle. Is it uninhabited? Is there a monster in it? Yacht, yacht, yacht. There's also random tables here for monsters in the area. So the next video I'm going to do is make up my own random chart for the random monsters in the world as you're going around. And of course, there is a chart again in the book for how many times you should roll for random encounters when going through hexes. Under page 47 or on page 47, it'll list the land adventures, which I don't understand why this is this far apart from everything else, but I guess if you're reading the book page by page, you'll remember this listed as land adventures. But the frequency of encounters, chances, time checks. So if you're in a relatively dense area with like towns and villages, people, things like that, there's a 1 in 20 chance of an encounter. If you're in a moderate, sparse, or patrolled area, which is basically like a foresty area near a town or around a town or near some type of population or some type of symbol or something on the map, it's a 1 in 12 chance. Now, uninhabited wilderness, just basically going through the forest, running through the mountains or something like that, 1 in 10 chance. Which is a lot different if you look at basic D&D or the little brown books. They have a little bit easier thing, but Gary wanted to give a little bit more of chances versus less chances depending on the population, because there'll be less monsters in an area where we see villages and stuff like that, because there'll be constant patrols around. But depending on what type of terrain you're in, like plain, scrub, forest, desert, hills, mountains, and marsh, there will be more checks or less checks. It'll say if you're running through the grassy plains in a relatively dense area, there's a 1 in 20 chance that you'll be coming upon an encounter in the morning, the evening, or around midnight. So the checks are morning, noon, evening, night, midnight, and pre-dawn. Now you don't get a check everywhere, except if you're in the forest, because that's usually dangerous and things like that. But most of the time, it's 3 checks per day. So after that, you don't have to worry about it. And Gary continues on under procedure to let you know kind of an idea of when these checks would be, and to try to don't make it so predictable. So morning could be anywhere from a certain time frame. Noon could be right before or after. Evening can be anytime you want towards the evening, and then night, whatever. He doesn't want your party to predict when they're going to be doing an encounter. He wants you to have it random. So he gives you a little idea of what should be done when it comes to making those checks. Now, the good part here is, say you populate your, I don't know, your area with whatever you want. You got your hex map going. You're crawling through it, and you have a shrine or something there, or an area in the mountains that you want to have a dungeon. You're playing by yourself. You can randomly put things like that there if you want, under your ruins or something. Something to make it entertaining, because dungeon crawls are always fun. Now, on page 169, there's starting areas for random dungeons, and you can basically start there. It gives you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 options. Much like if you ever played 4 Against the Darkness, when usually you start crawling through a dungeon, it gives you a starting area. This page gives you a starting area to put on a square map or a graph map. And you could draw them out, and then from there, you get to actually randomly roll on where you're going and what the doors look like, what the passages look like, how wide they are, how the turns are, how special the passage is, what shape the rooms are. It is a lot of detail that you can build for your little personal dungeon. And along the way, you're doing encounter checks, because it has a table for encounter checks in the next couple of pages for monster levels of the dungeon. So it's kind of, I'm not going to say fair, but a little bit balanced. No, not really, because Gygax wasn't famous for balance, but the monsters are appropriate for the level of the dungeon, not necessarily the level of your character. So you remember, these editions you have to learn how to run. So not only do you have different sizes of rooms and what size what the doors look like, what's located in the rooms, what treasures in these rooms, and how many exits to these rooms there are. And you can continue going on with these dungeons, and you can make it into a mega dungeon if you want, continuing along, because then there's options for stairs. Along with stairs, how far it goes up, how far it goes down. Is it a dead end, or does it actually go somewhere? There's also tricks and traps in here. 20 different things for that. And then the traps, they have the actual what traps it would be, magical traps, things like that, all on these pages going up into 172. Then we're back here. Then we go to the monsters on 174, and then monsters per level. So you could sit here and have a dungeon crawl all the way for hours on end and never be bored if you like doing that. And you can travel through the lands on the hex map, just generating hexes and different things to see. And you never have to worry about picking up one of those Game Master emulators if you want, if you don't know how to use them and are a little intimidated. You could start right here and have your own adventures with your own adventuring party, having to go into the dungeons, crawling across the lands, meeting people, getting different quests. You can pick up Fable tables, 1, 2, the Book of Quests, things like that. To just get quests going. And you never have to pick up a GM emulator. You can always just play solo RPG all by yourself with AD&D solo and have a good time. And I just thought it'd be something interesting I wanted to talk about today and bring up, since it's a lot of people want to play games, but they're always like, "Oh, I can never play a game." So, well, here's a game you can play by yourself, and you could use this for any edition of Dungeons and Dragons. Doesn't matter about first, second, third, fourth, fifth. You could use all this stuff for any edition. Just fill it in with the edition rules that you're using at the time, and you use these page 173, 47, and everything for just your basic movements. It also has, I also forgot to mention, when you're traveling through on a hex crawl, what the chances of getting lost would be. And when you do get lost, what direction you'll head and what to do when you head that direction. So there's a lot to do here that you can play and never actually have to worry about picking up an emulator or using anything like that. Hours of fun. I started it in my first video. Again, it'll be dropped on Saturday and around 2 o'clock Central Time if you want to watch it, just to see how I did the method, and I'll continue from there. All right, I'm going to head out. Keep it original, keep it old school. Remember, no drama, no clickbait, and all gaming on this channel. Good night, everybody, and God bless.